The revolving doors of the glass tower sighed open and closed like tired lungs as the winter storm gathered strength outside, snow slicing sideways across the avenue and smearing the city into white shadows. And inside the marble lobby, the heat hummed softly, while executives hurried past with scarves pulled tight and phones pressed to ears. But none of them noticed the small girl standing near the security desk with a pink knitted hat drooping over one eye and boots too thin for weather like this, clutching a crumpled paper cup with both hands, as if it were the only warm thing left in the world. And when the elevator chimed and the CEO stepped out, Daniel Cross, the man whose face filled business, magazines, and whose decisions moved markets, he was already late for a board meeting that could decide the future of thousands of employees, his mind ticking through numbers and forecasts, when suddenly a tiny voice broke through the echoing hall, not loud enough to demand attention, not brave enough to shout, but sharp enough to pierce the rush of adult urgency. "Sir, my mom didn't come home last night," the girl whispered, and Daniel stopped as if someone had pulled a lever inside him. His polished shoes freezing on the marble, his assistant still talking beside him about quarterly projections, unaware that something far more important had just collided with their path. And Daniel turned slowly, seeing the child's wide eyes shining with unshed tears, her cheeks red from cold, her hands trembling. And in that moment, the world of contracts and conferences blurred, replaced by a memory he never liked to visit, of himself at 8 years old standing in a hospital hallway waiting for news that never came. And the old ache stirred in his chest, heavy and real. "What's your name?" he asked softly, crouching down so their eyes were level. The girl hesitated, then said, "Lily." "My mom's name is Anna," and Daniel nodded, glancing at the security guard who shrugged helplessly, explaining they'd found the girl sitting outside in the snow and brought her in to warm up. She'd refused to leave, insisting she had to talk to the boss of the building, and Daniel's assistant leaned in urgently, whispering that the board was waiting and investors were already connected online. But Daniel barely heard it, his eyes still locked on Lily's face. "Where do you live?" he asked, and Lily pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket, damp from snow and nervous fingers, with an address written in shaky handwriting, and as Daniel read it he felt the unease grow because it was a neighborhood he knew too well, a place of old apartments and broken streetlights on the edge of the city where winter hit hardest and help arrived last. "Did your mom say where she was going?" he asked, and Lily shook her head, whispering, "She said she'd be back before dark. She always comes back." And that last sentence cracked something inside Daniel, because it wasn't just hope, it was a child's rule about the world, the belief that parents are unbreakable promises. And he straightened up slowly, looking at the storm raging beyond the glass, snow piling higher on the sidewalks, traffic crawling, sirens echoing faintly in the distance. And in that instant a choice formed like a line in the snow, clear and unavoidable. "Cancel the meeting," Daniel said suddenly, and his assistant blinked in disbelief. "Sir?" "The board, they can wait," Daniel interrupted, already removing his tailored coat from the rack and replacing it with a thick winter jacket kept for emergencies. "Right now a little girl needs her mother," and whispers rippled through the lobby as staff watched their powerful CEO change course, but Daniel didn't care. He held Lily's small hand gently, feeling how cold her fingers were even inside the warm building, and guided her toward the exit. Security rushing to open the doors as the storm roared in like an angry beast, icy wind slamming into them, and Lily hesitated at the threshold, eyes wide with fear. But Daniel knelt again, meeting her gaze. "We're going to find her," he said firmly. "The way one speaks to make a promise real. I won't let you face this alone." And something in his voice made Lily nod, stepping forward into the white chaos, the snow swallowing their footprints almost instantly, as they crossed to the waiting black SUV, its engine running and headlights cutting narrow tunnels through the storm. And as they drove, Lily explained in broken sentences how her mother worked late shifts cleaning offices downtown, how sometimes buses stopped running when snow got bad, how Anna would walk home wrapped in an old scarf and still smile when she arrived. But last night the door never opened. The clock kept ticking, and Lily had fallen asleep on the couch waiting, only to wake up alone, the apartment silent and cold. And when morning came and the snow was taller than the steps outside, fear finally pushed her to leave and search for help. And Daniel listened, gripping the steering wheel tightly, because he had told the driver to wait and insisted on driving himself, wanting control in a world suddenly spinning too fast. The streets were nearly empty. Cars abandoned on the sides, snowplows struggling to keep up, traffic lights blinking through curtains of white, and every block they passed made the situation feel more urgent, because in storms like this, time wasn't measured in minutes. It was measured in warmth and hope. And when they reached the apartment building, it stood like a tired giant, bricks darkened by wet snow, windows dim, the entrance steps buried, and Daniel parked as close as possible, lifting Lily from the car and carrying her through the drifts to the door. His expensive shoes soaking instantly, but he didn't care. Inside, the hallway smelled of dust and cold air. The elevator was out of order, a handwritten sign taped crookedly to the wall, and Daniel carried Lily up 4 flights of narrow stairs, each step echoing with his heavy breathing and the distant howl of wind. Until they reached the apartment door, Lily pointed, whispering, "That's our home," and Daniel knocked, already knowing no one would answer, but hoping anyway, hoping the door would open, and this whole thing would end in relief. But silence greeted them, thick and heavy, and when Daniel asked the building manager for access, the older man reluctantly unlocked the door, revealing a small living room with blankets on the couch, toys scattered on the floor, and a cold cup of tea on the table untouched. And the sight of that abandoned normalcy made Daniel's chest tighten, because it told a story without words, a story of interruption, of something that should have ended differently. "She didn't take her coat," Lily whispered suddenly, pointing to a thin jacket hanging by the door, and Daniel felt a chill deeper than the cold outside, because it meant Anna might have left in a hurry or never made it home to change. And the clock on the wall ticked loudly, marking the seconds of uncertainty, and Daniel stood there, looking at the room, then back at Lily, who clutched his sleeve like it was a lifeline. And in that moment he knew this was no longer just about helping a lost child. It was about confronting the part of the city that people like him often forgot, the part where storms were more than weather. They were threats, and he pulled out his phone, calling emergency services, reporting a missing person, giving Anna's details, describing her route from the office district to this building. But the dispatcher's voice was tired, overwhelmed by calls promising to add it to the list, and Daniel realized waiting wasn't an option. Not for Lily, not for him. "We're going to retrace her path," he said, determination hardening his voice. "If she walked, we'll follow where she might have gone." And Lily nodded, eyes filled with fear and fragile trust. And they stepped back into the storm, this time not just searching for a person, but racing against the cold itself. The wind howling louder now, snow stinging their faces, visibility dropping, streetlights fading into blurry halos. And as they drove toward the business district where Anna cleaned offices at night, Daniel felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, heavier than any corporate decision he'd ever made, because somewhere out there in the white chaos was a woman who hadn't come home, and a child who believed with all her heart that she still could. And as the SUV turned onto the long, snow-choked avenue leading downtown, sirens echoing faintly and the storm growing thicker, Daniel glanced at Lily in the passenger seat, wrapped in his jacket, whispering quietly to herself like a prayer, and he tightened his grip on the wheel, knowing that whatever they were about to find would change them both forever. And just before the scene fades, remember this moment, because this is where ordinary days end and extraordinary stories begin. And if you want to know what happens next, if you want to see how courage, kindness, and one desperate search in a snowstorm can rewrite fate, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now, because Chapter 2 will reveal the truth waiting in the storm.